Hello everyone, Arash Jafarzadeh here with a lesson on how you can get the most out of your Windows 7 operating system. This video is going to combine some of the basics as well as some of the more advanced features that you might not know about. With a little bit of practice, we're going to learn how you can save lots of time and make your life easier. So let's get started. The first thing you notice when you log in is this area. This is known as the desktop. Think of it like your home screen. Down below we have our taskbar. It's home to the Start menu, some pinned programs, and on the right side we have our system clock and some programs that are running in the background. On the left side we have our Start menu. The Start menu can be used to access programs, files, and some of your computer settings. Let's take a look at how these programs in Windows work. If I open a program, let's say I open Notepad, it opens up in what's called a window. I can click the top of the window to drag it left and right. I can open multiple windows at the same time. And I can also drag them and snap them with Windows 7. What that means is if I click and drag the title bar up to the top, it's going to fill up the entire screen and do what's called maximizing the window. If I click here, it'll restore the window back to the original size that it was. Alternatively, I can click this again to enlarge it or maximize it. Or I can just click and drag it down. So it makes it pretty easy. Clicking this little line here will minimize the window and hide it down on my taskbar. I can restore it by clicking it and bringing it back. The X, of course, will close the window. And I can get it back by going to my Start menu and clicking it once again. The other thing you can do with snapping is snap it left and right. If I click this window and drag it all the way to the right until my mouse hits the edge on the right side, you'll notice I get a little blue outline. And as soon as I let go, it takes up the right side of the screen. I can do the same thing with the other window. Drag it to the left, and it takes up the left side of the screen. So let's take a look at our computer's file structure. I'm going to go ahead and close these windows that we have by clicking the X. And we're going to go down here to the Start menu, and we're going to open up our personal folder. That's right up here. Mine is called A. Jafarzadeh, and your computer may have a different name for this personal folder. If I click it, I see all the files that relate to this account. By that I mean all the personal files, my documents, pictures, things like that, that are specifically on this account. Some default ones are my documents, my music, my pictures, my videos, the desktop folder, and some others. These folders help us stay organized, and you can always create new folders by going right up here and clicking the New Folder button. I can name my folder by typing in Hello Class, pressing enter, and now I have a new folder. If I double click it, there's nothing in there because we haven't put anything inside of it. There's two ways I can go back to where I was. I can click this back button here, or over here it says A. Jafarzadeh. This is where I was just a moment ago, and if I click there, I go back to where I was earlier. Also, you'll notice on the left side I have this area where it shows me a tree of all of the main locations on my computer. We're going to take a closer look at these in a minute. So, I can store my documents in my documents folder, I can keep my pictures organized in my pictures folder, etc. The thing is, all these folders and files are located somewhere on your computer's hard drive. So we want to take a look at where these files are located. Here's how we're going to do that. For the time being, I'm going to minimize this window. So it's down here in my taskbar. We go over to the Start menu, and we're going to go to this area that says Computer. When I click there, it shows me all the drives that are attached to my computer system. The first drive at the top is my hard disk drive. Mine is called OS, which is for operating system, but yours may have a different label. Most likely it'll say the letter C. The letter C is the drive letter that's assigned to your drive. You'll notice I have a DVD-RW drive which has the letter D assigned to it. If I was to plug in a flash drive, those would also have letters assigned to it, usually E or F. You might be wondering, where are A and B? Well, if you've been using computers for a long time, you would know that A and B were reserved for your floppy disk drives, but computers don't have those anymore. So let's take a look at our computer's hard disk drive. I'm going to double click it, go inside. I have a whole bunch of folders in here. Yours are probably different than mine, but some that are the same would be program files. You probably have that. I have two program files folders. One says program files and one says program files x86. The 86 folder are the programs that are 32-bit, and the regular program files folder are the programs that are 64-bit. You don't really need to worry about that, but all the programs that are stored on your computer are generally installed in these two folders. Down below, we have a Windows folder that stores all of my Windows operating system files. We don't really want to mess with that. The folder I want you to pay close attention to is right up here where it says Users. And if I double click on this folder and we go inside, my A Jafarzadeh folder is in there. If I double click on this, we see the same content here as we did a moment ago with this. If I snap this left or right and snap this left, you'll see that it's the same thing. It's just easier for us to access it by clicking from my desktop right from the start menu, but the location of that folder is inside your hard disk drive. So let's close these two windows. So now we know that all of these files and folders are located on my hard disk drive. You'll notice another area here on the left. It says Libraries. Libraries are a little different. Let's take a look and see what's inside. In there, I have my documents, music, pictures, and videos, and you can see the same thing here. I can collapse the tree or expand the tree to access what's inside of these libraries, or I can go up here and just double click on that location. Let's go back. So what's the difference between this documents and the My Documents folder here? They both store your documents, but here's how the library works. The library can have multiple locations linked to it. What that means is, if I have my Documents folder open, I can have it show files from My Documents, but if I wanted to, I can also have it show files, let's say, from my desktop or my All A Jafarzadeh Files folder. I can do that. In fact, if you look up here, it says my Documents library includes two locations. And if I click here, it shows me the locations that it's showing. If I add a location, let's say I want to add that A Jafarzadeh folder, so let's go back to here, and there was a file called All A Jafarzadeh Files. There it is. If I click this, and I click Include Folder, now my Documents library will include files from My Documents, Public Documents, and All A Jafarzadeh Files. If I click OK, you'll see that there are even more files that are showing up in My Documents library. I'll show you one other thing. It says the default save location is My Documents. What that means is, if I put a file, drag a file from anywhere, and drop it inside My Documents library, it's going to store the original file in the My Documents folder. That's this folder here. So once again, just to make sure we are on the same page, I have My Documents folder here, and I have a Documents library. Let's go ahead and remove that. So I'm going to go back to My Documents here, and I'm going to go up here to where it says 3 locations, and I'm going to remove all A Jafarzadeh files from that list. Now if I click OK, it'll only show me files in here that are from My Documents. Let's go ahead and take a look at one other thing here. At the top of each of these windows, you'll notice that it says More Options with a little picture of a list. If I click here, I can change the view of these folders. If I click extra large icons, it shows me the files and folders very large. If I change it to large icons, it's a little bit smaller, smaller still. I can list them, and I can show the details for them. This is very useful if I want to see when I modified the folders or see the file sizes. So for example, let's go to my pictures. These are some pictures here. If I switch it up and I want to see the large icons, it makes it easier for me to be able to see the files and pictures with ease. If I go down here to details, I won't see the previews or the thumbnails, which were the little tiny pictures on the left, but at the very least I can see when these pictures were taken or when they were uploaded to this folder, and I can sort them. I can sort them by date by clicking at the top where the title bar is, where the columns are, and it'll sort them by date, or I can sort them by name. I can sort them in alphabetical order starting with A, or the numbers, or I can do it in reverse and have it start with Z. It also shows me the sizes of each of these files as well. Let's say I'm trying to find a picture. I can use the search bar up at the top and type in the first few letters of the name. Let's say I want to look up my sweater picture. So I'll type in sweater, and all of the files that have the word sweater in them will appear from the pictures folder. If I want to do a search of my entire personal folder, I can go over here to desktop, double click on my personal folder, and then do my search here. And it shows me additional locations. There's a bit more to your folders, but I think that's a good start. We're going to go ahead and close this window by pressing the X here and here. On your desktop, you also have something called the recycling bin. If I open the recycle bin, it shows me all the files that I've deleted. If I go back to my personal folder here, let's take a look at my pictures. And let's say I want to delete this picture here. There's a couple of different ways I can do it. I can right click it and go to delete by getting this short menu, or I can simply press the delete key on my keyboard. When I press the delete key, or if you right click and go to delete, it'll ask me, are you sure you want to move this file to the recycling bin? I'm going to say yes. Now if I take a look at my recycling bin, I'll notice that that file, that picture, is in the recycling bin now. I can empty the files from my recycling bin by clicking empty recycling bin, and it'll permanently delete all of these files that are in here. Now they're gone. One other cool thing you can do is you can bypass the recycling bin altogether and permanently delete files. To do that, let's say I want to delete this picture here. Let's see, this one looks good. I'm going to delete this picture here by holding Shift and then pressing delete. What that does is it's going to ask me, are you sure you want to permanently delete this file? Now the file is going to be permanently deleted from my computer. And now it's gone. If we take a look inside the recycle bin, we notice that it's not there. That's because the file was just deleted and it bypassed the recycle bin process altogether. So let's take a look at our Start menu. If I click Start, in here it shows me a list of my programs and some pinned programs that I have put on here myself. These programs that show up on the bottom side are programs that I use often, that changes over time depending on what programs you're using regularly. Up here, these are programs that I have put here myself. And I can do that by right-clicking a program and clicking Pin to Start menu. When I do that, it shows up at the top of the list. I can remove programs from the Start menu by right-clicking them and saying Unpin from Start menu. Alternatively, I can right-click it and say Pin to Taskbar. That's going to cause the program to show up down here on my taskbar. I can right-click it and unpin the program from my taskbar. It's not deleting it or anything like that. It's just a quick shortcut that it's putting there for me for files that I like to use often. I can also look at a list of all of my programs by clicking here on All Programs. I click there. It shows me a list of every program that I've installed on this computer. It's quite a bit. If you don't want to sift through all that, you can just do a search for the program you're looking for. Let's say I'm looking for Publisher. I'll type in Publisher, and you can see Publisher shows up as one of the programs. Down below, it also shows me documents on my computer that I have named. It either has Publisher inside the name or inside the document somewhere, or it's a Publisher file. So it's a really easy way to look through your entire computer for files you're looking for. This is a good alternative if you wanted to do a start and search inside your personal folder. You can also, rather than typing up here, you can also do a search right here. It's an easier way to find things. Let's close this up and go back here to my start menu. So in a nutshell, we have the programs that I use often, programs I've pinned to the start menu, and I can do a search or manual lookup of the programs that are on my computer here. There are other things we can do. Let's go back. I can also set up my start menu to be customized for me. If I right click on my start menu and go to Properties, here I can modify the settings for my start menu. For example, right here it says Power Button Action, and if I click here, it shows me the options that I have. What this means is, if I press the power button on my computer right now, it's going to automatically shut it down. But I can set it up so that if I press the power button, it logs me off. Clicking sleep will put my computer into low power mode. It won't use up a lot of power. And basically when I come in and press a key on my keyboard, it'll wake back up and I can start where I left off. Hibernate would actually turn off, power down my computer, and then store the settings that I had before I powered off on the hard drive. And so when I turn my computer back on, I can pick up where I left off. Over here, you can have it store and display recently opened programs in the start menu. That's these right here. If I turn that off and click apply, it won't show me that list anymore. If I check it and click apply, well, it won't show me anymore because I just deleted that list. But if I start using programs, let's say I open Publisher, see what happens. So I have Publisher open. Let's say I close it. If I go over to my start menu once again, you'll see that Publisher is on that list. Over here it says Store and Display Recently Opened Items in the Start menu and the taskbar. What this means is if I go to Start, and let's say I click on this little arrow next to Notepad, it shows me all of the files that I've opened with Notepad or with Publisher. Let's click OK here. I can also right-click on the taskbar and go to Properties as well. These are the properties for my taskbar. Notice it's the same exact window we were on earlier, except now I'm in the taskbar tab. If I go to Start menu, I'm back to where I was just a second ago with you. Let's go back over here to Taskbar. So inside my taskbar, I can click Auto Hide. What that's going to do, if I click Apply, it's going to hide my taskbar when I'm not on it. It's out of the way. If I go down, it'll pop back up. When I'm off of it, it hides. I can uncheck that. I can lock my taskbar. Let's click Apply on that. If I lock my taskbar, I cannot edit it. I can't do anything with it. It's locked down there. You might be wondering what I can do with it if it was not locked. Well, let's take a look. I'm going to uncheck this and click Apply. Now, if I click and go to the edge, well, if I go to the edge and I click and drag it, I can make it larger. Or I can move my taskbar to the left or up top, or click and drag it to the left here or down below. I'm going to go ahead and lock my taskbar and click Apply because I don't want to move it around. I can click Use Small Icons. That's going to make my taskbar very small and out of the way. I can uncheck that to make it back to normal. You can also change the location of your taskbar from here. We'll stop there, and there are more things that you can do with your taskbar, but those are all the basics. Let's get out of that window. Let's take a look at the bottom right. This area is called your system tray, and if I click here where I have my clock, I can change the settings for my clock and the calendar. If I click here, let's see what we have. I can change the date and the time by clicking there, And here, if I click on change calendar settings, I can take a look at how it displays the date and a whole bunch of other features, which I'm not going to get into in this video, but feel free to take a look through here and see what you find. Over here it shows me how it shows currency on my computer, things like that. Let's cancel that. And cancel that. And cancel that. The other thing is I can have it checked to let me know when my time is changing, because it's set to tell me when daylight savings occur. I can click change my time zone here, and here it lets me choose what time zone I'm in, and you can see here is where I've selected for it to automatically update based on daylight savings. And there's internet time, things like that. We don't need to really worry about this stuff, but feel free to play with it. Let's get out of that window. Going back to the system tray, you'll notice that I have this little bar here. This is my Wi-Fi access. If I click here, it shows me all the signals that I have nearby. If you ever have problems with this, one of the easiest ways to resolve your issue is to restart your computer, or at the very least turn off your Wi-Fi signal. You can do that manually usually. If you're using a laptop, there's a button somewhere there where you can switch off your Wi-Fi and switch it back on. You can right click and disconnect from your connection, which I'm not going to do right now, but if I were to click this, it would actually disconnect me from my internet access here. Or I can just click it and click disconnect and then reconnect afterwards. Or I can right click here and troubleshoot problems, and a lot of times that will solve your problem with internet access. I'm not going to go into too much details, but those are some useful tips that can help you out if you're having internet problems. The other thing I'll show you is this little pyramid shape. If I click here, it shows me all the icons that wouldn't fit. And these are programs that are running in the background for me. If I click customize, it shows me all the programs that have been down there before in the past, and I can set them up so that it shows me notifications or doesn't show me notifications. Let's say your antivirus is bothering you and you don't like it showing you all these pop-ups. Well, I can just go in here and hide icon notifications and it won't bother me anymore. If I click OK, then it won't show me. Now I'm going to actually undo that because I do want to see notifications regarding my my antivirus software. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on customize again, go over to my antivirus software and say show icon and notifications. Now, oh, and by the way, when I click show icon and notifications here, it actually shows me the icon. It's not inside this pyramid anymore. If I click show only notifications, the icon will hide within this little pyramid again. Let's click OK. Let's take a quick look at our control panel. I'm going to go over here to start and click on control panel. In here I can find all of my computer settings. Everything that has anything to do with your computer settings can be found here. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but I'll show you some of the basics that might be useful for you. One is right up here where it says user accounts and family safety. If I click here, if I click on user accounts, it shows me the my account here, or I can click manage another account and it shows me the other accounts. Now I don't have any other accounts on here, but I can always create one and I can give it a name, and I can say if it's a standard user or an administrator. Generally you want to try to avoid using administrator accounts when possible, and keep everything as the standard user, and then give it administrator access when necessary. If I click create account, it'll create the some name account there for me. I can click that account and go over here to delete the account, or I can create a password, I can change the picture, set up parental controls, which is very useful. If you have students or children using your computer, I can go in here. In here, I can click on or enforce current settings. So I can set up time limits for my account. Here, it's open all these times, but I can block it. Let's say I don't want them to use it late at night, so I'm going to turn on parental controls so that it doesn't work from 9 p.m. to 12 p.m. each day of the week. So you can see I'm just clicking and blocking these out. You can block other times throughout the day, and then you would click OK. And now that user cannot use the computer during those times. I can go over here to games, and I can say can play some, or can some name play games. That's the name of the account. I can say yes or no. I can block games, or I can set it so that the person can only play games for early childhood or everyone, and click OK. At the top, it also said you can block games with no rating as well. So I'll let you play with this yourself, but it's pretty useful. Let's go back to parental controls, and I'm going to go ahead and delete. Let's go back actually to user accounts here. I'm going to go ahead and delete the account I just created. So I'm back here in my user accounts area, and if I click on manage another account, I can click on the some name account and click delete the account. And I can either keep the files that were made. What this means is, let's say that account had been used for a while and that person has files and folders and things like that. If I click keep files, it will keep the personal folders on your hard disk drive. Remember that? If I went to start computer and I double click on the hard disk drive and I look inside users, which is right here, in here I would have a folder that says some name, and all their personal files would be in here. So if you want, you can keep all those files without any problems. Or you can just click delete files and it would delete them permanently. So I'm going to click delete files. There weren't any files to begin with, but I'll just click delete files and delete account. One other thing you'll notice up here is this bar always shows me where I am. Right now I'm in the manage accounts folder, and this is the way I got here. So I like to call this breadcrumbs because you can see where you were up there. The other thing I'll show you in the control panel are your devices. If I go over here to hardware and sound, if I go up here to where it says devices and printers, it shows me a list of all of the devices that are attached. So I have my mouse, keyboard. Over here I have a list of the printers that are attached to my computer and other unspecified devices. This is an area where you can easily add a printer, and if you ever want to add a printer, usually your printer will come with a CD, but let's say you don't have that CD. You can just click on add a printer and manually install a printer this way. It asks you if it's a network printer or a local printer. Usually it's a local printer you're adding. It asks you what port you want to use. So this is a list of ports. I'm not going to get into this part of the lesson right now, but these are different ports that are attached to my laptop. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that though. We're not going to get into too much of that during this lesson. The other useful thing to know inside your control panel is this area that says programs. I can click here and it shows me all the options for my programs. What we're going to look at is uninstall a program. Notice that this was also located right here. Windows 7 automatically includes subcategories that are used very often. And the same thing goes right here for hardware and sound. You'll notice that I can add a device right here, or view devices and printers. Anyways, if I click on uninstall a program, it shows me a list of programs that are installed on my computer. And this is how I would uninstall a program. This means that it's going to take that program, remove all the folders, files, and things that are related to that program. Keep in mind, you generally do not want to go to Start and Computer and go inside your hard disk drive and start deleting folders from here, because usually programs have files and folders outside of this location. So it's always a good idea to uninstall a program from this list here, so it deletes all the files that relate to that program all over your hard disk drive. Let's go ahead, and by the way, if I want to uninstall a program, I can always just click on, whatever it is. Let's say I want to remove my antivirus, and right here I can click uninstall and change. So we're just going to go ahead and cancel that, or exit out of that. Let's go back to my start menu once again, and we're going to go into control panel. And in here, the next thing we want to look at is my folder options. Now, I didn't show you this earlier, but I can go up here and do a search for what I'm looking for. So I can type in folder, and there's folder options. This is pretty useful as well. I'm going to take a look here in the General tab, and here it says Browse Folders, and right now I have the bubble check that says Open each file in the same window. What that means is if I have a window open and I double click on a folder, it opens it inside the same window. However, if I check this bubble and I click Apply, when I go to that folder and I double click on a new folder, it opens it in a separate window. So that's useful if you like that, if you like windows all over the place. But generally, most people don't like that. There are some other things here. I'm not going to get into those in this video, but one thing we do want to look at is this View tab. And in here, there's a few things we can take a look at. This gives me all the options on how it displays my files and folders. For example, right here, it says Hide extensions for known file types. Let me explain this. Let's take a look at my Documents folder. In here, I have a whole list of the documents that are on my computer. And in here, and by the way, I meant the Documents library, not the Documents folder, but you understand what that means based on the first part of this lesson. Now in here, you'll notice that all my files have something called a file extension. The file extension goes at the end of the file name, and it says dot and the extension. So this is a .doc, .docx, .ai, .docx, .pdf. These extensions tell my computer what type of file it is. So the computer knows when it sees .pdf that this is a PDF or Adobe Acrobat document. Up at the top, it says .doc or .docx, and it knows that these are Word documents. DOC is the older version of Word. .docx is the newer version of Microsoft Word. Now, by default, newer computers don't show these anymore. In fact, if I check this little box and I click Apply, you'll notice that it now hides those extensions. And you can tell what kind of file it is by either clicking it and seeing that it says, oh, this is an Adobe Illustrator artwork, or by taking a look at what the thumbnail is. If extensions are useful for you, then you can go ahead and uncheck this little box where it says Hide extensions for known file types, and it will show you those extensions as well. Feel free to take a look through this and see what other things you can find there, but be careful. I'm going to go ahead and click OK to get out of that and close this window. One last thing I'll show you in your control panel is your firewall. Let's go ahead and type in firewall. And right here it says Windows Firewall. I'm going to click there. In here, I have the settings for my Windows Firewall. And what the firewall does is that it prevents access from outside sources into my computer from the web. And you may want to make sure to check that this is turned on unless you have something like Norton or McAfee that has a built-in firewall with it. So find out if your antivirus software has firewall or not. Mine does not have firewall. So I have enabled my Windows firewall. The other thing is that you want to check to make sure that you even have an antivirus software installed on your computer. That's very important. If you don't, I would go get one right away because your computer is vulnerable to hacking and viruses that are abundant on the World Wide Web. Let's go ahead and go back. One other thing that I'll show you, which a lot of people don't know about, is the system restore point. If I go up here and do a search for system restore, right here under the system category, I'll see that it says create a restore point. And if I click here, I see that down below on the right it says create a restore point. Now what this is going to do is it's going to create a restore point that kind of does a snapshot of all of my computer settings, drivers which tell my computer how to use the different peripherals and hardware that are attached to it. So that way if something goes wrong, I can restore it back to this point in time. It's not going to affect any of your personal files at all. So your personal folders are all safe and sound, but it will take a snapshot of all of the settings and drivers for your computer. So let's take a look here. I can name the restore point. So I'll say practice. So that's what this is. I'll click create. And it's going to go through, and we're not going to wait for this, but it's going to go through and create a restore point for me. I'm going to have to wait a second. Once it's done, you'll get a message that says the restore point was created successfully. It might take a few minutes. Let's close that. Let's say something goes haywire with my computer and I want to restore it to a previous point in time. I can go over here to System Restore, and in here it's going to ask me which point I want to restore it to. Well, right here you see I did a manual restore, and if I click there I can click next, and it will restore it back to the way the settings were when I had practice. I'm of course not going to do that. I'm going to cancel that. But if you are ever interested in doing that, there's more documentation on the Windows site, and there's a lot of tutorial videos that'll help you with that. Let's go ahead and cancel that. Let's take a look at one more thing. I'm going to go over here to where it says Network and Internet. And in here, there's a category that says Network and Sharing Center. I'm going to take a look at that. And in here, it shows me that I'm connected to Monticello Academy Main and that it's a public network. What this means is that the computer has a set of settings that if I'm connected to a public network, not to share my personal files and folders. I can change this by clicking here and saying, no, this is my work network. So the settings are going to change, so it does have a little bit of sharing if I want it to. Pay attention to how you have this set up. Now I can customize this by going over here to where it says Change Advanced Sharing Settings. And in here I can say turn off or turn on or turn off network discovery or file and printer sharing, etc. here. Let's say at my connection to Monticello, I do not want to share my printers and files, so I would click turn off and click Save Changes. And now I am no longer sharing my documents on the network, so nobody can connect to my computer. Now keep in mind that when you have file sharing enabled on your computer, you're not sharing every single file on your computer system. No. It's sharing the public folder and the files that are in there. Unless you've set up some other folders that are also set to be shared, that's usually the default location that it shares on the network. So let's take a look at that. If I go here to Start and I go to Computer, double click on my hard disk drive and double click on the Users folder, there's a folder in here called Public. And if I double click on that, it shows me my public documents, public downloads. These are what is shared on there. And if I look at my public documents, it's empty. I didn't want to share anything on the network. So if you're ever curious about that, go take a look in there and see what's being shared when you have file and network sharing enabled. Now I'm going to close that, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to this to change advanced sharing settings, and I'm going to turn on file and printer sharing and click Save, because I do use that for work. So that's all the general stuff when it comes to your computer settings. One other thing I'll show you is on my desktop, you'll notice that I have some programs, iTunes, Camtasia, this program called IDS Client, and they have a little arrow. What that means is that these are shortcuts to a program. For example, iTunes is a shortcut to a program that is located inside my hard disk drive in the Program Files folder and in a folder called iTunes. Now, I actually made a mistake. Let's go back. It's not in here. It looks like it's going to be in this folder. So if I go to Program Files 86, and I double click on iTunes, there it is. You can see that iTunes.exe, which means executable or a program, I can open my iTunes program from here, or I can double click on the shortcut which links to this file here. In fact, if I right click this and go to the properties for this link or this shortcut, it shows me that the target location is in the C drive, which is the hard disk drive, inside program files 86, inside a program called iTunes, and it links to a program called itunes.exe. I can always manually create a shortcut of my own by right-clicking on a file or program, whatever it is, and going to Create Shortcut. There it is, itunes.exe shortcut. And if I drag this over to my desktop, you can see that I have a second shortcut to iTunes. I can name this shortcut anything I want. It doesn't have to be called iTunes. It could be called Goo Goo Gaga. And it does the exact same thing. It's just a link to my iTunes program. Now I don't want to change the name here, because if I change the name here, this shortcut will no longer work. So I'll leave you with that. Your Windows 7 operating system comes with a whole bunch of programs that can be useful. You know, one that you've probably used is your calculator. If I type in calculator, there it is. But another one that a lot of people don't know about is called Task Scheduler. And here it is. Let's run this and take a look at what it does. This is a very useful program. Now, it looks intimidating at first glance, but it's actually pretty easy to use. On the right side, it says Create Basic Task, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'll click Create Basic Task. And in here, I can name my task. Let's say send email. And I can add a description to help me remember what this task does. Sends an email to my friend to say hello. If I click next, it's going to ask me when I want this task to start. Do I want it to be every day? Do I want it to be weekly, monthly, just one time? I can decide what I want it to do. Let's say once a week I want to send an email to my friends. So I'm going to click weekly. Down below, some other things that you can note are when the computer starts. So each time my computer starts, it can do this task. When I log into my computer, or I can have it when a specific event is logged, like something specific happens on my computer and then it does this task. Let's keep it simple for now and just say weekly. I'll click next. The next thing it's going to ask me is when it happens each week. So right now it says the start date is today and the time is 4:27, which is now. And then over here I can say how often it reoccurs. So it happens, what, on Tuesdays? Mondays? When do I want it to happen? Let's say every Tuesday I want it to send this email out. I'll click next, and it's going to ask me what I want it to do. Well, I want it to send an email. Click next. I can say who it's from, who it's to. I'm just going to send it to myself. I can say the subject. And some text. I can have it send an attachment if I wanted to. And this is the server for my email client. So let's say I'm just going to use my work email. So I'll just type in mail.monticelloacademy.org. Now you're going to have to figure this one out on your own in your mail settings. You can always do a Google search if you use Yahoo or Gmail, but you can just type that in there. I'm going to click next, and I'm going to click finish. Now every day on Tuesday it's going to send me an email. Now if I take a look here, if I scroll down a little bit, you can see right there, scroll down, where is it? There it is, send email. There it is right there. There's the task I created. I can double click it to take a look at what it's supposed to do. It says send email. There's my description, the action. There's a lot more to this, but this can be super useful because I can create a new task here and have it automatically open up a program or set up a reminder for myself. There's a lot of really cool things here, and I'm not going to go into too much details in this video, but feel free to play with it, and if you're interested I can make another video that shows you all the cool things you can do with your task scheduler. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that and close that window. One thing that can be useful to know is how to modify your screen settings and your screen's resolution. Let's take a look at it. If I right click here and go down to screen resolution, I can change the resolution of my screen. Now, what does this mean exactly? So basically, your computer is made up of tiny little points called pixels, and each pixel has its own color and a location. So I see a blue bar with all this stuff here, but really it's made up of tiny little points. And I can show you how this looks by using a program called Photoshop. Let's take a look at, I'm going to go ahead and drag this out a little bit so we have a little bit more to see on my screen. I'm going to press a button on my keyboard that says Print Screen. And then I'm going to go to Start and go to Photoshop. I'm going to go to File and New. Click OK here, and I'm going to paste in that screenshot. So here is a snapshot of my desktop screen. Now you'll notice it's smaller, but it's actually zoomed out. The actual size of this is this big. We can look around on the different parts. Let's zoom in a bit more. If I start zooming in, you'll start noticing that things start to become blocky. Can you see that? If I zoom in a bit more, you can start seeing the individual pixels that make up these icons and the text. Your screen is made up of these little pixels, and the more pixels I have of it in a given area, the higher the clarity or the quality of the image. It's going to look much more crisp and clear. So if I go over here to resolution, if my resolution is low, that means in every square inch of my desktop or my screen, I'll have fewer pixels, which means things won't look as crisp and sharp. The higher the resolution, the more pixels I can fit in one given area, which means the quality will be much higher. Here, when it says 1600 by 900, that means my resolution is 1600 pixels wide by 900 pixels long. A lot of times, your HDTV at home, they'll say 1080p. Well, what does that mean? That means your screen is 1080 pixels high by however many pixels wide, usually 1440 or 1920. Also, if you connect your computer to a projector, that will show up here as well. It'll have a little number 2, and it'll show you a second screen. I'm going to get into that in a separate video. Let's cancel that and close this. Let's say I want to change my desktop background. Again, I can right click here and go to personalize this time. And here I can change the theme, which basically it'll change my background and some of the other features of how my start menu and programs look, how the icons look. Feel free to play around with these, but the default is the Windows 7 theme, but feel free to play with these. I can also change my screensaver by clicking here on the bottom right and choosing a screensaver from this list. Now these are useful because if my screen stays on too long and it doesn't change, it can start to cause problems for my screen. It can get damaged. So these are useful, and I can just choose a screensaver, choose how long I want to wait before it shows up, and I can even preview it to take a look at what my screen is going to look like. Let's go ahead and cancel that and close that. The last thing I'll cover in this video are the use of shortcuts. There are a lot of easy ways to do things on your computer without having to use the mouse. For example, I can click on the Start menu to open up the Start menu, but alternatively, I can press the Windows key on my keyboard to open up the Start menu. Now, unfortunately, in this video, you can't see my keyboard, but I will verbally tell you what I'm pressing, and I'll also include a list of Windows shortcuts that you can use on your own. So let's take a look at some basic ones. Let's say I have a program open. I can close this program or this window here by pressing Alt and F4 on my keyboard. and that will close the program without me having to move my mouse to the X button at the top right. Another Windows shortcut that can be useful is to close a tab. So let's say I have Firefox open, which is my web browser, and I have Google here, and I'm going to create a new tab by going to the Firefox window here and clicking New Tab, and I have a second tab. Let's say this is my school site. Let's go ahead and open CSU East Bay. So you have 3 tabs here, and I want to close them. Well, I can click this little X on each of them, or I can press Control W on my keyboard to close the tabs. One of my favorite shortcuts allows me to switch quickly between one program and the other. Let's say I have 2 programs, or maybe even 3. Let's open up some programs here. I have Publisher open, open my web browser. So I have 3 programs here. You can see they're all showing up on my taskbar down below. Here's Firefox, here's Notepad, here's Publisher. I can minimize them all, get back to my desktop, or maximize them by clicking here. I can switch quickly between the programs. Let's say I have Google here, and I want to switch back and forth between Google and Publisher. I can hold Alt on my keyboard and press Tab. Right now I'm holding Alt and I'm pressing Tab. I'm still holding Alt, and it shows me a list of programs here that are running in the background. I have Publisher, the desktop, this is the recording software I'm using, and right here I have Firefox. If I press Tab again, it'll switch between the different programs, and I can choose the one I want it to go on. So I'm holding Alt and I'm continuously pressing Tab. Let's say I want to switch to Publisher. I let go of Alt, and now it switches quickly to Publisher. I can hold Alt again, press Tab, and go back to Firefox. Press Alt Tab again, go back to Publisher. If I hold Alt and press Tab a couple of times, I can get to Notepad. Now I'm in Notepad. Another way you can switch between the programs is pressing Window on your keyboard. There's a little Windows button, and Tab, and that will also switch between the programs. It looks much nicer. I can't show you on my screen because I have it disabled at the moment, but feel free to try it. It's pretty cool. Just hold Windows on your keyboard and press Tab, and you can switch between the programs that way as well. If I press Windows L on my keyboard, which I'm not going to do because it'll stop the recording, it will lock my screen and take me back to the login screen, so that if I quickly need to lock it up and step out for a moment and I don't want anybody to access my computer, I can do that quickly. So that's Windows and the L button. The other useful shortcut is Control Escape. That's a quick way to also access the Start menu here. So I have 2 ways to get to that now. I can press Window on my keyboard, or I can press Control Escape on my keyboard to get here quickly. I'm going to select some files. Let's say I want to move some of my files to a different location. So I'm going to go over here to Age of Farzadeh, open up my Documents folder here, and let's say I want to move over these 2. Now you'll notice that if I select them, if I click on them, it'll select the file. I'm just single clicking. If I hold Control, I can select several files at once. If I want to select a series of files in order, I can click the first one, hold Shift, and click the last one. And you can see now it's selected all those files for me. So again, if I click on the individual files, I can select one at a time and drag it over. If I want to select multiple files that are out of order, I select the first one and hold Control and select the other ones, and then drag those over. If I want to select a series of files, I can click the first one, hold Shift, click the last one, and drag those over. I can also click and drag my mouse to select multiple files like that. And let's say I want to select all the files except this one. So I would hold Control and click that file again, and now it's not selected. I can hold Control and click this file and deselect it. And then drag it over here, put them back. Let's put these back as well. All right, that's everything for this lesson. I hope that you were able to learn some new things, and I would recommend that you go and try these things out. Go play around with them and see what kinds of things that you can learn on your own as well. If you have a question, please feel free to email me directly. I'd be happy to do what I can to help you. And good luck. We'll see you at the next lesson.